Hi, everyone. Welcome to NetBrain's Next Gen webinar. And in this webinar, we'll talk about cloud. And I've been in the just to give you a little bit of an introduction. My name is Raj. I've been with the company for over 8 years now. And every time we come across a sizable organization, we always talk about how do you work in cloud? What are some of the problems that you solve? And today, I just want to throw a light on how we've enhanced our support for cloud, and not just cloud, but overall NetBrain. So for the folks who are here for the first time, and if you have no idea what NetBrain is an automation solution for your networks. And when I say that, we cover all sorts of networks, all sorts of vendors, because we've got some built-in parsing technology through which we are able to connect with different types of vendors. And through our API technologies, we're also able to speak with cloud vendors. Okay. So we do have support for GCP, Azure, AWS, and more coming up. Now, in this webinar, I'd like to focus on what are some of the challenges that NetBrain is solving, because just because you have a cloud environment doesn't mean your challenges change, right? We're still solving the same network challenges that most companies have out there. And then we'll talk about how this works if you've got a cloud environment. So I'll just do a couple of quick slides and then we'll jump into the product. Now, with our no-code automation platform, there are 5 major categories we have identified that most of our customers face challenges in. First of all, we want to help you prevent outages. And this just doesn't mean that we're trying to solve your ticket faster, but this is to identify problems, potential problems in the network, potential policy mismatches, config drifts, and everything is covered under outage prevention. So if you're able to go prevent an outage, you're going to save much more money than waiting for something to break and then trying to fix it. Right. So that's number one. Number two, diagnosis automation. We're an automation platform. So NetBrain, if you ask anyone who's been using NetBrain for over 5 years, they'll tell you about how awesome of a product this is when it comes to automating diagnosis. So when there's a problem, NetBrain jumps in and becomes that first responder for you, tries to identify what the problem is, and in some cases also helps you identify the root cause and then close the ticket if possible. So that entire setup is a diagnosis automation. Application performance. Application is the holy grail of your network, if you think about it. So we do help you identify the underlying infrastructure, because it's always application versus network, but we want to identify what is that underlying infrastructure in that application, what the path looks like, what is the connectivity, what's the performance metrics, and then be able to identify where the gap is. Security, we're going to be in the RSA function conference next month in San Francisco. We have a huge secure network security support, and everything to do with policies, end of life, end of support, security policies, security groups, all of that is supported under the security. And last but not least, protective change, which means that we just don't want to, of course, there's tons of product out there that can help you push a change, but we talk about making sure that the change is protected, which means we do a pre and post check for you. We do validations, we do app dependency checks, we do network dependency checks as part of that protective change. So this is just a 2-minute spiel on, what are some of the categories that we are trying to focus on now. But not necessarily if there is something which falls outside of this, of course we're open to talking about it, but these are some of the major categories that customers always ask us about. Now, in our demo today, I'm not necessarily touching on one particular category. This is not a workflow demo. This is just I would say, information session on what is it that you can do with cloud devices. I'm not a cloud engineer, but I'll show you what you can do through NetBrain. So those are the 3 workflows that I was referring to. Troubleshooting. So for every problem that comes in, we want to do a dashboard for you. And I realized that's the easiest way that you can understand what's happening in the network, and you can also pass this on to your colleagues as a medium of collaboration. So troubleshooting would have, every ticket would have its own dashboard, which means when that ticket was opened, what are some of the checks that NetBrain performed? What are some of the checks that L1, L2 performed? How do you solve this problem? Everything's going to be in greens and reds for you. Okay. The same thing with assessments. This is huge. I work with our channel team here, and we have partners all around the world uh, talking about NetBrain, doing assessments with NetBrain, and these are assessments in various categories. These are network-wide security assessments, network-wide just your network assessments, trying to identify what are some of the policies being used in the network, a bunch of things. So that all falls under the assessment workflow. And last but not the least, the change workflow. Every change, so this has been a big problem in every organization that I've worked prior to NetBrain, is something failed. Why did that fail? Well, XYZ pushed a change to it. Great. So we go to XYZ. Hey, can you explain what happened? And this guy or girl doesn't have an idea, right? So the problem is not because we are incompetent engineers. The problem is that we don't have a way today to automate these things, and documentation is boring. So through our change workflow dashboards, this will talk about what is the impact that's going to happen. How do we validate this? And how do you continuously protect this change? Because if it's a critical change, I want it to stay there, right? I don't want someone else to come and change my change, right? So that is covered under the change workflow. So if you're here looking at NetBrain for the first time, or if you're looking at these dashboards for the first time, I would highly encourage get back to your NetBrain contact and request a demo, or maybe just schedule a demo from the website, and one of us will connect with you and explain how these workflows work. And if you already have NetBrain, and if you're not using it to its fullest potential, don't worry about it. We've got a customer of excellence program. So reach out to us. We'll tell you more about it. We'll do complimentary assessment for you and kind of help you identify how you can use NetBrain better. All right. So with that being said, I'm just gonna skip this a little bit. This is just like a quick slide on how the cloud support looks like. On the left-hand side, we just have a beautiful path map. So we start from one of the VMs in Azure and go all the way to our on-prem device. And then we talk about multiple elements in the middle, and we run monitors on them, right? On the right-hand side, we just monitoring a VPN tunnel sessions, and we created a dashboard out of it so that it's easier to look at a dashboard than just go, verify each and every device that you have in the network. So without spending any, okay, by the way, I'm looking at the Q&A section as well. So if you have a question, feel free to just mention them all of here. As soon as I get a chance, I'm going to answer your questions. Okay. Awesome. So I'm just going to X out of this real quick. So like I said, 5 minutes on this slides. So we can start with the dashboard so that I can explain how things work here. Just give me 1 second. Good. So what you're looking at is the latest and greatest NetBrain next gen. If you don't have this release, like I said, get back to us, get in touch with your NetBrain rep, and we can upgrade you to this release. So in this release, we've introduced summary dashboards. And what these dashboards do is these are not just your traditional dashboard that you would get from a monitoring tool, right? These dashboards are interactive dashboards, and they are continuous dashboards. So let's say, for instance, let's try and understand what this dashboard looks like. First of all, it summarizes what are some of the devices that you have, how many automations you're running on these devices, and how many alerts you've received. Okay, that's probably what you're interested in. So let's identify what are some of these checks that we're running. The first section is Azure. So we're running a health assessment every 4 hours. Everything in these dashboards are customizable. So if you don't want to see the Azure first, you can have something else. So you can pretty much build your own dashboards. You don't get a lot of these. You do get a lot of them out of the box, but then our goal is to, empower you to start building your automation and your dashboard, because this is a platform. So everything that you see in the rows are basically the automations that you're running, or the checks that you're performing, and everything you see in the column is the scope of this automation. So for instance, if you're looking at, first of all, this is Azure, right? And everything is clickable as you see. When I click on any one of these, it's going to open a detailed dashboard of that particular category. So if I'm looking at Azure, I'm looking at a detailed dashboard for config drift and everything else. Okay. But since we're talking about a summary, it's easier to understand, it's easier to share. That's why, and personally, I prefer summary dashboards more because it's just very easy for me to get to the depth from this dashboard itself. So what is it telling me is that I've got all these devices, 157 Azure related elements in my network, and I'm running these config drift check. I'm running a compliance assessment check. I'm running a health assessment, security assessment, and I did find some problems. So the green is good and the red is bad, like every other dashboard. We don't have the yellow or the amber because it's just confusion. So anything that you're not satisfied with will fall in the red. Okay. So let's select any one of these. So this will tell me that we're running these checks every 4 hours, right? As you can see, we've got a timestamp right here. It tells me when these checks were running. It tells me whether or not they were successful. And then it also tells me what is the status code. And as you can see, there's a bunch of config changes that happened. But the question is, Raj, how did you get to this point? Like, how did the config change? Well, we have something known as network intents running in the back. And these intents, think of them as checks running in the back, right? Automations or whatever you want to call it. In NetBrain, we call them network intents because this is the intent of the architecture of your network. And we don't want that to be getting violated. So what happened here is we looked into this device. It's a firewall. And we said, great. So let me get, it's through API, we pulled in its configuration. We compared its configuration from last time and turned out that there was a problem, right? And as soon as there was a problem, we raise an alert and we say, hey, the config is not matching with last time. It's a very simple check. This is one of the simplest check you will find in NetBrain is a config compare. Okay. So that's basically happening here. And there's a bunch of these other checks. I will talk about a lot of these in detail in just a few minutes. Let me keep an eye on my Q&A. Everything is okay. Awesome. Good. Part 2, we talk about AWS. Every 4 hours, same drill, different checks, right? So we've got our EC2, ALB health assessment. So you can look at your load balancers getting out of policy, or if you have a transit gateway issue, you can look at that as well real quick. And this will tell you exactly what's happening. Well, there's no input traffic received, bad news, right? All of a sudden, if your input traffic drops to 0, you want to look at, hey, what happened to that particular area? So this is exactly what I was talking about when I said outage prevention. We're trying to catch problems even before they happen. And all of these checks, we do give you a lot of these checks out of the box to you so that you can get an idea of what these are. But essentially, you know your network best and your engineers know how to troubleshoot them best. So we take your knowledge, your know-hows, and we convert them into network intents and workflows inside of NetBrain, so that when that issue happens in the cloud and Joe is not in office, you're not panicking, right? Because Joe is on vacation and you're giving him a lot of missed calls and he doesn't like it. So instead, what we'll do is we'll train NetBrain to do all the steps that Joe would do to troubleshoot this scenario. Okay, that doesn't mean we make Joe less, but that just means that we're making everybody more effective in the organization. Good. So that's part 2. Part 3, again, we got these bunch of these assessments. If you have NetBrain, if you get upgraded, we'll give you some of these dashboards to play with so that you have an idea of where you can click, what you can do. But they are very, very easy to build and very easy to edit. And I'm going to build one right in front of you, okay, in a few minutes. But that being said, I'm going to jump into an actual map and show you some elements of AWS. But before that, do you guys have any questions that I can answer for you? Awesome. All right, so let's move to the map. And before I can move to the map, we're also linked map to each and every one of these automation pieces. So let's say, for instance, you're looking at your load balancer, right? And you said, hey, I want to quickly visualize this. It's very easy. So what you do is you get to any one of these devices and there's a view map option. So you just click you can either look at the backend of how this logic is working. So for this load balancer, we're looking at a lot of these things, right? And then we find a couple of reds. So now we know what the problem is. But if you want to visualize this on a map, you just click on view map, and then we're able to go open that map for you. Since it's just one device, it's going to be a single device map, but think of it as an application. If an application went down, you're looking at an application map. So you would see everything from source to destination. There we go. So here we see that here is our a device and a bunch of these greens and reds associated with it. Now, if you do understand what these are, you can always open them up and you can see, all right, what my logic is. So if it's greater than 0, I need them to be highlighted, right? Some simple logics that we're using to build these intents. Cool. So let me switch over to a map to give you an idea of how this works. Now, how we discover these AWS or these cloud elements is with the help of APCs, APIs, I'm sorry. So with APIs, what you do is you connect with with whatever cloud manager that you're dealing with, and we load all of the data that we use in our intents, and we convert them into variables. And we're not just displaying data that we get, but now when they get converted into variables, you can run logic against it, right? Like I said, if it's greater than 0, you want to turn it red, right? If I find a certain security group not compliant, or maybe if I see an allow all, I want to turn it red as a security issue. So you can run these kind of logic tests on cloud elements as well, which is amazing if you think about it, because there's no other platform that can give you that option of converting cloud data into variables that you can compare logic against, right? So that's what we're doing here. So just by looking at this map, you can identify that here there's two paths we're talking about, right? One of these paths is running from of course from my AWS network to my on-prem, and the other one is going from on-prem to one of my EC2 instances. Okay, and of course in the middle we've got our direct connect, we've got our transit gateways, we've got our VPC. So you're able to go identify what this VPC router looks like, and if you just want to get into its data, you're able to go find out all of that data. Like I said, everything is being converted into human readable format. That also means that you don't have to keep logging into AWS every time to check if you want to check for something. Everything is available to you right here. And if you want to understand how this path was built, this is not just a lazy trace route, but this is a very intelligent path analysis. So for the folks who know what NetBrain is, then I'm pretty sure you know about this, but the folks who are here for the first time, we do a detailed, this is patented by the way, we do a detailed hop-by-hop check to go from source to destination. So we're not giving you just a fancy version of a trace route. Rather, we get into each and every device, we identify, we look for all these things, right? So if this is cloud elements, we're looking for security groups, we're looking for source and destinations, L3, and then we find the next hop, and then we see if it's permitted, and we go on to the next hop, right? And the next hop, we repeat the same cycle. But if it's a different device, if it's a different type, then we change our method of execution. So for each and every hop you see, we have different checks that's happening. Like if I get into this firewall, there's a bunch of different checks. This is my FortiGate on-prem. So here we're looking at VRFs, NATings, layer 3, PBRs, IPsec VPNs, GRE. And this is something, if I were to do this manually, it's going to take me hours and hours. First of all, I need to have the knowledge to do this manually. And then if I have the knowledge, it's going to take me hours to do this. So NetBrain not just does it for one-off, like one of these paths, but then I have hundreds and hundreds of these application paths saved in NetBrain. And if any of these gets disconnected, if any of these fails, I get a notification or I get an email. Okay, so this is what I'm referring to when I say preventive automation. So that's just how we draw paths from point A to point B. So I've got a question. Great. All right, so the question is that, are you able to create these kind of traffic paths with a hybrid network? The answer is yes. So you could start from on-prem, get into ACI, and then get into cloud, get into my SD-WAN, and come back to on-prem, and I would still be able to draw every single element from point A to point B. So NetBrain takes complete detailed analysis, does detailed analysis for you. So yes, the answer is yes, you could do it. Awesome. So goes from source to destination. Great. So what else do we know about this network? Right now, I just know for a fact that these are completely connected. Everything is healthy, but I don't know the performance element of this. I don't know if this complies with my standards. I don't know if there's any security policy getting violated. And the way I start digging into further information is by using some of the network intents that I mentioned in the beginning, or using our automation. And we've made it very simple for our users to look into these automations. Okay. How to use automation? Great. You don't have to be we're a no-code platform, number one. So you don't have to be extremely knowledgeable in coding, scripting, or any other tools to use this. All you have to do is select the right library. So we provide you with some built-in library, but we encourage you to start building your own library. And in our library right here with AWS, we've got a bunch of these checks available to us. So if you're not able to see my screen, if this is too tiny for you, I'll just read it quickly. So we're looking at infrastructure config compliance, EC2 config compliance, virtual VPC. And so there's a bunch of these, right? VPN tunnel check. We've got the VPC endpoint service status. We've got the network access control list, security groups, compliance. So I'm going to run a bunch of these just to show you how easy they are. So let's say I just want to quickly identify my EC2 config compliance. Okay. So I click replicate. So what it does is that it's going to run this test, run this check on my entire network right here. And it will also give you a list of devices that falls into this category. So we just have one EC2 right here. Okay. So we're going to run this. Okay. So we do have a problem. It says that EC2 config is not compliant. Okay. So let's find out why that happened. Okay, so as HTTPS tokens is set to optional. So that's probably a security flaw, right? So that my organization does not accept that as normal. So we highlight it and we flag that, right? Just an example. This is how quickly, and if you want to see this on the map, you can also see this on the map right here. Right. What else do we want to see? Probably my access list check, right? And my security. So I can select multiple of these together. And then you can also look at the devices that fall under this test. So I'm going to replicate this again. And I'll run this. Great. So we did find a couple of problems. Number one, the default access control is in use and it's allowing all traffic. Okay, bad news. And anything else? Yeah, the same thing. So again, we found a problem, right? So what we can do now is I can convert this into a network-wide assessment, because now you just learn how to look at a library and use some of these library elements which is built in, and then you add this to this map, and that's it. That's it. There's no next steps from here. So the next step from here, if you were to convert this into a network-wide assessment, you can convert this into a dashboard in about 2 clicks. Okay, and I'll explain how that works. But I have a question here. So question is about the library. Who builds it? Good question. So with NetBrain, you will get a excuse me. So with NetBrain, you get a pre-installed library of some very basic commands. Okay. But you know your network best. So if there is something that's missing over there, or if there is something that you want to add, and maybe you want to build your own library, and that is what we encourage, by the way. We've got power user training. We've got all sorts of things that helps you identify in what your network looks like and build this automation. So I would say this is going to be a partnership. So I give you what I have to give you an idea of what's available and how to do things, and then we work with you to build your customized libraries so that you can use this in your processes. Okay. Good stuff. So where were we? So here we were, right? So we run these intents once, and then now we want to convert this into a dashboard. So the way I do is very simple. So I'm going to save this automation that I run. Okay. So I'm just going to overwrite the existing one. There we go. So we're happy with this. We've saved it once. I'm going to run it a couple of times. There we go. Now there's 2 options you can do. You can either convert this into a monitor by running it on a schedule. Okay, so I can say schedule check AWS. Okay, and I'm running this probably 10 times every 30 minutes. This is going to be a few times. But let's say you wanted to run this continuously forever, right? So you can do that as well. So you can take off the end time, probably put this next year, and then run this every 5 minutes, every 10 minutes, depending on how important or critical this task is. In this case, it might not be as critical. I mean, this is of course critical, but this is not something that I want to monitor every 5 minutes. But just for an example, I'm going to save this. Okay. So I'm running this every 5 minutes. I'm going to run it a couple more times so that I have some data when I build that dashboard. There we go. Right. And this is, like I promised, it's a two-step dashboard. So here it says new dashboard. You select that, you name what you want to name your dashboard. So I'm going to call it AWS NACL check. Okay. And I'm going to create this on the fly. Good. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to add this to my summary dashboard. So this is a dashboard which is done by itself, right? So I can open this dashboard, enjoy it, and whatever. But then if I wanted to add this to this, what is that dashboard? Right here. So this mega dashboard, right? This has everything about my cloud, but I don't see that security check over here, right? So maybe I want to add that to my mega dashboards. I can do that real quick. So I'm going to go back to where that map is. Great. And I'm going to say add to a summary dashboard. Great. So what summary dashboard do you want to add it to? My cloud infrastructure assessment. And what group do you want to add this to? So I'm going to create a separate group. Okay. I'm just going to call this a AWS security. Oops. AWS security check. There we go. So it's just taking a few seconds to ready the dashboard. There we go. But this is how it is, right? This is so easy. Use the library, run an intent, convert that into an automation. And then when you show this to your manager, of course, you know, they're going to be like, wow, man, you're so smart. You just build this complex dashboard, whatever. But you know, in reality, that it took you like 4 clicks to do this. And here it is, my extra check that I just added. It's very simple to read. It tells me that, hey, these are the problems. I'm going to go click on it. And then it also has the map associated with it. That's the best part. So when I come here, I say there's a security problem. I'm going to click on the map. It's going to take me back to the same map that we started from. Right? So if you were looking at this for the first time, there's chance that you might not have understood everything about this. But the purpose of this webinar was just to let you know what's available to you, right? So if you find this interesting, if you find this useful, do circle back, go ask for a NetBrain demo. We'll do a customized demo for you. And then we'll also talk about next steps from there. If you want to try this out in your environment, if you want to see how NetBrain works, if you already have NetBrain, if you don't know how we did all of this and you want to attend our training, we've got complimentary power user training. This is not going to be complimentary for too long because we've got a bunch of these happening in different cities. And I can give you, if you can allow me a minute, I'm going to open that real quick for you. There we go. So on our website, if you go to support, let me just take this away and go to in-person training. You'll have, we have our in-person sessions happening. Okay. So these are happening in all of these cities. So Munich, Chicago, Portland, Boston, Toronto, Atlanta. If you are anywhere close to these places, you know, I would highly encourage. These are, like I said, these are free. Register for these training. It's going to be a classroom setup, 2-day training, power user. So we teach you everything in NetBrain, right? How do we operate? What are the workflows? How do we create these automations? How do we create dashboards? All of that. Okay. With that being said, I'm going to pause for a minute, see if there's any more questions. If not, then we'll see you next time. All right, so I don't see any more questions. So it was nice talking to you all. Next time we'll have a different topic. We'll have a different workflow. So do join us 2 weeks from now to see what else we've got here. Okay, with that, over and out.